is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Border War podcast here on the Kansas City Sports Network. We are presented by Emprise Bank. My name is Jarrett Sutton. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Jeff Hawkins. Jeff, how we doing? Happy New Year. We are in league play. Excited to talk some ball tonight.
League play. It's a new year. A lot of crazy stuff going on with basketball. I mean, what more? Couldn't be in a better place right now here talking basketball in this time right now.
No doubt. We got a lot to catch up on. First podcast of the new year. Sue, really, good competitive games for Kansas. I did want to touch on, we're going to talk about the UCF game. We're recording here on Thursday. Kansas falls to UCF last night. But did want to get your thoughts on the TCU win. That was a heck of a basketball game. I really enjoyed watching that game, back and forth, and Jamie Dixon, Bill Self, two coaches that know each other so well. It felt like it was an X and O, type of game towards the end. I know lots made of the controversial flagrant and everything that went on there, but outside of that, it was a great game to watch, wire to wire. And Kansas finds a way to close and get a good win. In a game where, you see some of the things creep in of turnovers, bench production, 3-point shoot. I mean, there's things to talk about with this team, but they do find a way to win and beat a TCU team that I think looked pretty good and looked pretty dangerous. And we'll talk about this more. Just the Big 12 is going to be a monster. I mean, there's sneaky good teams that are fully capable of pulling the upset. I think this is. We always say the Big 12 is going to be competitive because it's a great league, but I'm so excited to watch this year, especially with the newcomers in a BYU, in a Houston that are really good teams.
Yeah. I mean, you said it best. TCU, the Big 12. You got a Jamie Dixon matchup with Coach Self, Big 12 play. You would expect a game like this, and like you said earlier, it was a back and forth game. Those are the type of fun games. I know the fans don't like them. They just want a blowout every game. But for basketball fans, those games that are competitive, they're going back and forth, those are the games you want to watch because that's when guys are playing at, to me, I think the highest level. The competition is at the highest level. You can tell that both teams want it because it's going back and forth. So those are always the fun games to watch. And one of the things I think with, that I take away from that game is, KU, they were able to win a gutty game like that with turning the ball over 18 times. And, I think turning the ball over 18 times, that's something that, Coach Self has that mark where he wants to be under 10 turnovers, and they do a pretty good job of staying close to that number. So having 18 turnovers, just giving up those extra possessions, those are things that, when you have a game going back and forth, you come out with the win, you appreciate it. But looking down in the future, when you think deep run, especially in the NCAA tournament, those are things that you definitely want to clean up because every possession matters. And, having 18 turnovers, that's just something that can be correctable. Focus. Those are things that, the players can correct. So you don't want to give away those possessions. But overall, good win. A win's a win, but obviously they got to take care of the ball.
I think a highlight of the TCU game is KJ Adams and Hunter Dickinson. I mean, both those guys combined for 48 points between the two, 22 rebounds, and obviously 30 and 11 from Hunter, 13 to 20 from the field. I mean, KJ was 7 of 8 from the field and 4 of 5 at the line, and that's a great night for KJ. I mean, both those guys just were so good, whether it be pick and roll action, whether it be on the block, whether it be helping each other out with screening and finding each other on cuts and dives. And DeJuan had a pretty solid game finding them as well. Yeah, Bill Self's got to be smiling because this is kind of old vintage Kansas when you 1-5 just dominate.
Yeah,
and really, when you look at like points in the paint. I always think like when you think about the paint on both ends of the floor, it's like in football on the offensive line, like that's where the game is won sometimes. I know so much is made of shooting, but you have bigs that can own the paint and do what Hunter did. Then obviously he hits a game winner on a beautifully designed play on the high low to Hunter. Just a great night for 135 minutes to be as efficient as he was.
Yeah, and that's what Hunter's done. He's done all season. He's literally put the team on his back, and for him to have these type of games inside outside, I've said it before. He's low key the team's best 3-point shooter.
Yeah. Hit two threes.
I say low key, man. Like, no, low key. They got shooters on the team. I know, and Hunter is a shooter for sure. But just what he brings to the game, like you said, that old vintage. Throw it inside. KU had 42 points in the paint. Hunter had a lot of those points as well too in the paint. But being able to score in the paint, that just opens everything up as well. And obviously when you got a big man as dominant as Hunter that you can get it into the paint, it just makes things a lot easier for those shooters such as Kevin. You mentioned the best, KJ. KJ had a double as well too. And, when Hunter's scoring around the basket like that again, KJ just kind of flies as this guy like under the radar, over the radar, and he's taking full advantage of it. And teams are starting to try to figure out you have to check KJ, but it's hard to check KJ when you got to check Kevin, and you also got to check Hunter as well too. So seeing those three guys play well, I think that's really great. And again, Dewan might have 2 points, 10 assists, or he might get you 10 points, 8 assists like he did against TCU. So Dewan's always going to bring what he brings to the table, his leadership, his experience. But seeing these guys where they're at, they're just looking, I think, for that one more piece. Who's that next guy that's going to step up and be able to help? I think it's Furphy. I do. I think Furphy can be that guy to really step up and push these guys to another level. But it's early right now, Big 12 play. I know Coach Self is still trying to figure some things out with this team. But so far, I like what I'm seeing, regards to this TCU game.
That's right. Look, you think this, here we are early January, but when I look at the TCU game, there are 26 lead changes, 11 ties. Yeah. I like a game like that early in league play, because you're in the family. Everybody tendencies. There's a lot of returners. Yeah, there's newcomers. Coaches know, how each coach operates in the league. There will be some differences just with the newcomers, the new schools in the Big 12. But I think this is a game that you can kind of circle, finding a way to win in a close game that's back and the balance. If you look at, both halves, it was 41-40 Kansas at the half by 1, 42-41 in the second half, Kansas by 1. And Kansas wins 83-1. It's great basketball game back and forth. But it was a game of runs, ebbs and flows. That's how an NCAA tournament game usually flows. And so when you can get a game, if you can get a game like that, January and early league play, in your own building, and you find a way to win that, I always think that's good for just you've been in those moments, kind of conversation where you find a way to win, you execute down a stretch. Yeah, I don't make much of the calls. I know that's something that's been talked about a lot, but finding a way to win is the name of the game, and they were able to do that.
Yeah. Like you said, man, I guess addressing the calls, man, when the team turns the ball, like if you don't have any turnovers, you didn't give up any offensive rebounds, maybe you can start pointing the finger at the referees. Maybe. Like if you're turning the ball over, it's just kind of hard, when, you just got to control what you can control. And, those refs already have a tough enough job with three guys trying to figure out what 10 players are trying to do on that court, with the coaches in their ear as well, too. So,
well, and Jeff, this, but when it's a close game or you've allowed a team back in the game where it's close late, now it's more in their hands than ever, and you have that opportunity to not put it in their hands.
Yeah,
it just doesn't get talked about enough because it's fixating on those last final minute, but what took place at the 10-minute mark of the second half or the 10-minute mark of the first half. There's all these you said it earlier. Every possession matters, and even if it's an officiating situation, it still comes back to every possession what you could have done differently to not be in that situation in a close game.
You're right.
So we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll hit on the UCF game. But before we do that, we did want to tell you about Home Field Apparel. Home Field is committed to creating incredibly comfortable, officially licensed apparel with vintage college designs. Home Field has a growing collection of over 150 plus colleges to choose from, including your favorite team's unique logos, mascots, and iconic moments to create thoughtful design apparel. Shop your latest team's apparel. Head to homefieldapparel.com. Use the promo code KCSN23 for 15% off of your first order.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
Welcome back to the Border War podcast here on the Kansas City Sports Network. We are presented by Emprise Bank. Jeff, let's get to it. We got to talk about it. Let's talk about UCF last night. It's kind of a tale of two halves. I'll open it up to you. Just kind of get your overall thought in what they was 65-60. So kind of a low scoring game. You look at some of the numbers. And there's a couple things that jump out. Good to see Johnny Furphy play well coming off the bench. That's a positive, I think, for this team moving forward. DeJuan had 8 assists. So there's some positives, but just not a night that Kansas, especially second half, it just felt like they were really out of rhythm. And give UCF credit, they played to momentum. They played with a lot of energy and ultimately come back and win the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think it started from the get-go. UCF jumped out on a 7-0 run. And, when you're KU, you sign up, doesn't matter who you play. You sign up to get everybody's best shot. And, playing on the road now, down 7-0. It's just the momentum to me was already in the favor of UCF. And again, it's always I think KU does a great job of responding, and they did respond. But I think just giving UCF their crowd, that energy, their players, their coaches, the mascots, everybody in there had a ton of confidence right when that game started. They thought from the gate, we can play with these guys up 7-0. And I know Coach Self's a guy that you jump on you right from the gate, put your foot on your throat and don't let it up until you tap out. And they just kind of got, I think, caught off guard a little bit. And I know they respected those guys coming in, but I think they got caught off guard a little bit. And I think that slowed the game down. But again, they end up, taking the lead back, going up 8 at halftime. But again, turnovers, 18 turnovers for the game, back-to-back 18 turnovers. And that's just something you don't see from a Coach Self team, turning the ball over 18 times. I'm pretty sure he wants to pull his hair out for that, because they're a team that likes to stay 10 and under is where they feel comfortable, whether they win or lose. If he looks at that turnover column and it's over 10 on a win, he's still not happy, because he knows at the end of the day, you think big picture, you want to be able to take care of that ball, because when it gets late in the March Madness, every possession matters. So taking care of that ball and having good habits and doing that, breeds that championship mindset in those habits as well too. So I thought the turnovers really kept UCF in the game, and just, KU coming out a little flat, getting the crowd into it, getting them believing. They just kind of had some things that didn't work towards their favor.
Yeah, I look at, Kansas shot 68% from the field in the first half, 32 in the second half. And didn't get to the free throw line at all in the first half, and they only end up going to the line 11 times and hit 6 free throws. That's tough on the road, because you got to find a way to get to the line too. Especially they did hit 6 threes in the game, but 6 for 18 from 3. So you look at generating offense, right? Trying to make things a little easier on yourself, especially when you're on the road. You need those easy buckets. You need to get to the line. And sometimes we don't do that. And they were better in the second half than they were in the first half, which was so interesting about how the game just kind of flipped in that second half. I did want to touch on Elmarko Jackson. I know that's kind of a talking point. He's a freshman, right? He's a talented kid and very good athlete. He plays because he defends. He's a very good defender. But the last 2 games, he goes goose egg, no production offensively. In about 22, 23 minutes, back-to-back games, TCU, UCF. What are you seeing? I think for me, it's confidence is a big part of this, I think. He's a guy that is a cerebral player. I think he's a smart player. But trying to find a way to kind of find his own offense and be aggressive with that. I think it comes back to a little bit of confidence and just a little bit of, hey, this is DeJuan's team. This is Hunter's team. This is KJ's team. Because I watched Kansas play Wichita State, and I thought Elmarko to be a little bit more aggressive, right? Like finding his jump shot. He can shoot the ball.
Yeah.
Are you seeing anything jump out to you over the last couple of games to start league play with Elmarko?
I think you mentioned it best. It's, I think it's the confidence. I think he shot 10 shots, if I believe, against Wichita State, and that was a different flow of game.
Yeah.
But I think it's all confidence, because you go from having the confidence to shoot 10 shots to not having the confidence to shoot not even a shot in the last 2 games. So I think it is a confidence issue. So, he's second guessing himself. He's second guessing. And I think he just needs to trust in himself, because he's there for a reason. And he went there for a reason. And, I think all players, sometimes they go through this, especially freshmen, because you're used to, the basketball coming, the fruits and the rewards coming to you in different ways, when you're in high school, and when you get to college, everybody's good. So there's a little bit of adjustment. And, I feel like I went through a phase as well too. And, looking back, it's just like, man, you gotta do what got you there. And I think if Elmarko can get to that, because I just think he's thinking too much. And I think probably Coach Self would tell you that he's thinking too much. And I think Elmarko's a guy that, when he's at his best, he's not thinking, because he's already thought ahead, so he can just play. So right now it's just, I think, a confidence. He needs to slow down, trust himself, and let the game come to him, because like you said, he brings it on the defensive end, which Coach Self loves, which he'll play. It's like Elmarko, you don't have to be the leading scorer. You just have to have the confidence to know that you can score at any point if you need to, because we know you're going to defend at the other end. Coach Self wants guys. He doesn't want you just coming here shooting shots, throwing up shots if you're not going to guard on the other end. And Elmarko guards. He takes that seriously. So I just think he needs to slow down a little bit, put more confidence in himself, and just take it one game at a time, one step at a time, believing yourself.
Yep. I think it's something, I know Coach Self will look at this, and there'll be conversations behind closed doors, but I'm just wondering too, if it's, when I think of confidence for freshmen, I think of pressure that they put on themselves. And sometimes, when you're starting, is it take the pressure off if you come off the bench? Do you start to find a little bit of a different role? And now Johnny Furphy's kind of catching, so he's a really good shooter. I'm not saying that'll happen. I'm just curious, if that will be thought of, if this keeps, I mean, you gotta tap into something, I think, because I think when you look at this, Hunter and Kevin have been excellent, and what you're going to get from those 2 guys, KJ as well. I think DeJuan's got to be a double-digit scorer. He's got to find scoring. Yeah. You know what I mean? He's such a pass-first guy, but he's going to have to find some scoring. When he scores over 10 points, I feel like Kansas is in such a better position, because it takes a little bit of pressure off everybody else. And I think Elmarko and Furphy are 2 huge pieces that I'm sure the coaching staff is thinking a lot of. How do we tap into these guys to help us along the way, where we can find some production from them to really give the team a lift a little bit.
Yeah. And, they're 2 young guys,
right.
Figuring out Big 12 play, getting a dose of this, type of play, in time, I think they'll get it. I think a lot of the freshmen, they do get it. But I think it's going to be interesting to see, what, Coach Self and his staff, what adjustments they're going to make with Furphy and Elmarko. I think that's going to be it is a pretty hot topic. A lot of people are talking about it. That's just the truth of the matter of it. So it's going to be interesting to see how he manages that. And I think that's why, Coach Self is, great at what he does, because he gets paid the big bucks to manage those type of situations, those emotions between those players, if he does make that move. So, but it's going to be interesting to see. But regardless, I think whatever he does, both of those guys, they're going to figure it out, because they're going to play. They're going to play.
Right. And when you're in the family in Big 12 play, like this is the beginning of league play.
Yeah.
As we go through this, I think there's adversity in non-conference play. There's adversity in conference play too, and that happens with really good teams. That happens with national championship teams. It's just a part of going through league play.
Yeah.
And you have to just keep building and keep improving and keep dialing in and adjusting and that's what Coach, like to your point, that's what Coach Self is great at. So I hate to use the word like trusting the process a little bit. I think Coach Self's going to have this team ready to go as they keep building to playing their best basketball in February and into March, because they have, multiple All-Americans in Kevin and Hunter. That you can work with that. Hunter getting 4 rebounds against UCLA. You're not going to see that too often. So a game I think is very much a teachable, learnable experience for this team, especially with some of the young guys like we're touching on that are getting their first taste of league play. A little different than non-conference play, and I think that to your point, that is a little bit of an adjustment.
Yeah, if you're gonna get punched in the mouth, this is the best time to do it right now when you're learning, and you can use these as teachable moments. Like you said, this was a good game. Like regardless, I guess maybe it's the coach in me. Regardless, this is a good game because you can learn a lot. You can build a lot from this. Moving forward, guys are going to have to make adjustments. They've been in these situations before. They can make adjustments if they come into this type of a situation again. So, Coach Self's the king of this. I teach my players this. I preach it. I live by it. The guys that are successful in life are the ones that can turn negatives into positives. So, he's very big on that. And, they got to take these negative situations and find out the positives and just be able to tap on those and stay away from those negatives.
Yeah. Kansas has a big game coming up on Saturday at home in Allen Fieldhouse against a very good Oklahoma team. So as lose a game, you got to move right on and move on to the next one. Both these teams now Kansas OU at 13-2, and both these teams 1-1 in league play. So, and we've seen some great Kansas-Oklahoma matchups in the past, but it should be a good one at Allen Fieldhouse, 1:00 tip. I think that game is on CBS as well, and then Kansas will end up going to Oklahoma State later on next week. So, Jeff, always good to connect and catch up, man. Great to have league play. I'm so excited to follow the Big 12 this year. I feel like I have a little pep in my step because the league's going to be great.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with these teams coming every night, every Saturday. Like, there's so many good games in the Big 12. It's going to be a lot of fun all the way through February once we get to Kansas City for Big 12 tournament.
Hey, February, then March. Woo.
And it's coming. It'll be here before you know it, man. It's January 11th, and you'll blink, and it'll be last week. We'll be talking about who's winning the outright and who's gearing up for Kansas City. So a lot more to cover here on the Kansas City Sports Network. We'll be back next week, maybe here in the next couple of weeks to break down more from Kansas. We look forward to that, Jeff. Well, as always, fun catching up with you, man. Fun talking ball. We'll talk next week.
Always.